Okay, so if you're keeping an eye on the craft world, maybe the economics of it, tool investments, lumber prices, the huge shifts in custom design, then, woodworking isn't just some quiet hobby anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We're really talking about business now. So
Yeah.
today, we're doing a deep dive into what we're calling the woodworking revolution,
Mm-hmm.
looking at the business, the creativity, what's really shaping things.
Yeah. And this deep dive is really for you if you need to get the strategy behind the craft, not just the techniques. The sources we've looked at, they basically map out what makes a modern maker successful in 2025.
Right.
It's more than just nice craftsmanship now. We're focusing on new industry demands, sustainability becoming, well, essential, and crucially, how profitability works now.
So the goal is to get you up to speed fast, but thoroughly.
Exactly. A solid understanding of these shifts.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Right. Where should we start? How about with the wood itself? Seems fundamental.
Makes sense. And yeah, looking across the sources from small workshops maybe out west to big furniture makers in Europe, the first big thing, the really powerful movement, is reclaimed wood. It's making a huge comeback.
Huge. We're seeing old barnwood, shipping pallets people used to ignore, vintage oak,
Yeah.
all being reused.
Brought back to life.
Yeah, and this isn't just like a fleeting trend. It's a real shift in where makers get their materials, and it gives them a massive edge, competitively speaking.
How so?
Well, this wood, it comes with history, right? It has depth, character, something brand new lumber just doesn't have. It can't replicate that.
And the sources say when makers use this stuff, the furniture has soul. That's the word they use.
It is. It's a strong emotional hook. And it's not just about feeling nostalgic, really. When you buy, say, a rustic table made from old beams.
You're buying the story that comes with it, the legacy of that material.
Exactly. And that story, that narrative power, it translates directly into better profit margins, more stability there.
Oh, okay. How does that work?
Well, think about it. New wood prices can be all over the place, right? Commodity markets. But reclaimed wood, especially sought-after stuff like old oak or walnut, it's scarce.
Right.
So makers can charge more. They're selling uniqueness, maybe a flaw, a mark from its past life that's actually a feature now.
Not a bug.
Not a bug. And that scarcity kind of insulates them from competitors who are just using standard new materials.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And this desire for authentic materials, it seems to flow right into the next big driver, sustainability.
Definitely.
It feels like we've passed the point where being sustainable is just a nice bonus. The sources suggest it's becoming, well, almost mandatory, like a basic requirement to even be in the market.
That's the key shift right there. It's moved beyond just being a buzzword for branding into something you actually have to build into your operations, an investment. We're seeing clear examples, especially in places like Canada and Northern Europe. Even small independent studios there are quickly changing how they work to meet these ethical demands.
Okay, but let's push on that a bit. For a small shop, Mary isn't switching over really expensive. Getting certified sustainable hardwoods like walnut or birch, using non-toxic water-based finishes.
Yeah.
That costs more, right?
It does.
And then some sources mention things like solar-powered tools in the workshop. I mean, that's a serious investment up front.
It is. It's a significant hurdle, no doubt, a barrier to entry. But here's the thing. Making that investment is what ensures the business can survive long term. And, crucially, it guarantees access to the market.
How so?
Makers who don't adopt this whole approach, from responsible wood sourcing to non-toxic finishes, even thinking about energy use with solar, they risk getting shut out.
Shut out from?
From the customers who pay the most profitable segments of the market.
So the return on investment comes because conscious consumers, they're actually willing to pay more if they see proof you're doing it right.
Exactly. The sources are really clear on this. Consumers who care about ethical buying, they are ready to pay a real premium for work that's built responsibly from start to finish. And beyond just the price, using certified sustainable supply chains, it's actually more reliable in the long run, lower risk than relying on sources that aren't verified or might just disappear.
So it's about building trust, brand equity based on integrity.
Precisely. And that lets a maker charge more consistently and feel confident about it.
So the risk flips, doesn't it? Sustainability isn't just a cost, it's the price of admission to get those stable, high-value customers.
You got it. It's the new foundation for the business model, really.
And building on that new foundation, it takes different skills, right? This focus on ethics and quality, it leads us straight to the tools makers need now. The sources say modern woodworking is as much about a digital mindset as it is about, hand tools and traditional skills.
That blend, that mindset shift, that's where the real revolution is happening. The maker today needs to be a kind of hybrid.
Hybrid.
Yeah, fluent with a chisel, but also comfortable commanding complex digital tools. Technology isn't replacing skill, it's changing the whole business approach.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the tech allows for scale and complexity that was just impossible before.
Totally.
We're talking things like 3D design software, you can prototype, model things virtually first, laser engraving for really fine details.
Right, but the absolute game changer, it's the integration of sophisticated CNC routers.
Okay, explain that for someone maybe more traditional listening. CNC router.
Think of it like a super precise robotic arm that carves wood, but it's guided by a computer design. So let's say you have a complex joint or a detailed pattern.
Yeah.
The CNC can replicate it perfectly, maybe 100 times, without flaws. It cuts out all that setup time and the potential for human error you'd get trying to do that by hand in batches.
Wow. So it's not just about being precise, it's about scaling that precision.
Yes, exactly. Scalability. The machine nails the mathematical perfection and the high-volume cutting, and because the 3D software helps optimize the layout on the wood,
You waste less material.
much less. So a maker can shift their business. Instead of just relying on slow, one-off custom pieces, they can move towards producing complex components in batches efficiently.
Okay, but that raises a question, doesn't it? If the machine's doing all the precise work, what happens to the traditional hand skills?
Yeah.
Is there a danger the craft just becomes cold?
Yeah.
Sterile?
That tension is exactly what defines the best work today. The truly modern maker gets it. They understand that the machine's output, however precise, is just the starting point. The blank canvas, if you will.
Okay.
It still absolutely needs the warmth, the artistry, the sensitive touch of human hands for the finishing touches, the sanding, the oiling, the final shaping. That's what gives it the soul we talked about earlier.
Right, so the artistry shifts. It moves from doing all the rough shaping to focusing on that final refinement. You use the machine for speed and accuracy.
And the hand for the aesthetic judgment, the feel, the emotional connection.
Got it. It's the combination that sets the new standard.
It's the new competitive edge.
Okay, let's connect this back to making a living. Building sustainably, investing in digital tools that all needs paying for. So what's actually selling? What are the market trends? What kind of projects keep the lights on in 2025?
Yeah, good question. The focus has to be on getting the most out of your materials and keeping shipping manageable while still offering something special, something personalized.
Right.
So the pieces that really work profit-wise tend to balance usefulness, smart material use, and frankly, being easy to ship.
And our data points to some really specific types of items doing well. Things like custom wall signs, huge success there, tapping into that personalization desire. Floating shelves, cutting boards seem to be perennial winners, minimalist furniture designs, and even things like wooden planters.
And there's a strategy behind why those specific things work so well. Take cutting boards. They're like the bread and butter item for so many shops.
Why is that?
Because they let you use almost every scrap of that expensive hardwood. You take the offcuts, the beautiful bits of walnut or birch left over from making a big table.
And turn them into something valuable.
Exactly. A high-value, desirable product from what might have been waste. It optimizes your material costs brilliantly.
Okay, and things like floating shelves or minimalist pieces,
Yeah.
they solve the shipping headache, don't they?
Yeah.
They can often ship flat packed, or they're just smaller and lighter than, say, a giant cabinet.
Precisely. In the age of selling online, the size and weight of that final shipping box is a huge factor in whether you actually make money.
Right.
Minimalist furniture, floating shelves, they're efficient to ship, relatively easy to make in standard batches. But the key is you combine that function with really high-quality, sustainable materials. That's what makes them sell.
So what's the golden rule then? Tying together that simplicity, quality, and the emotional connection across these successful projects.
I'd say it's focusing on items that give people instant usefulness and a way to express themselves personally. These items are often more accessible entry points for customers into the world of high-end craft.
Like a gateway purchase.
Sort of. And remember what we said earlier, people buy stories, not just products. A small, perfectly finished cutting board made from salvaged walnut. That tells a powerful story about responsible craft and quality that lasts. And it's a story more people can afford to buy into compared to, say, a massive custom piece.
Okay, so what does this all mean? when you put it all together?
It means this woodworking revolution, it's like a total reset for the business side of things. To succeed now, you need to master logistics. You need sustainable sourcing. You need digital precision right alongside your traditional hand skills.
It's an expression of legacy.
Amplified by technology.
Exactly. Woodworking in 2025, it's defined by that mandatory sustainability. It's boosted by digital tools like 3D modeling and CNC, but ultimately it's still grounded in human skill and touch. Machine speed and precision. They're only truly valuable when guided by the maker's conscious choices, ethical, artistic choices.
Which brings us to a final thought, something provocative for you to think about, kind of drawn from the sentiment in a lot of these sources, the idea that wood never lies. If every cut, every joint, every finish tells you something about the maker's integrity and skill, how does relying more on digital tools, the CNC, the laser engraver, how does that change the story the wood tells in the end?
That's a deep question.
It is. We need to think about that balance. What part of making something must remain purely human to keep that legacy, that soul intact? Something to mull over, keep innovating, keep crafting, and keep thinking about that perfect balance.